Frank Mathews, also known as the Black Caesar, was one of the most elusive and powerful drug lords in American history. His name might not be as well known as other famous figures in organized crime, but his story is as captivating as any gangster legend. Mathews' life took him from the poverty-stricken streets of North Carolina to the top ranks of the American drug trade in the 1970s. At the height of his power, he controlled an empire that spanned across the United States from New York to California. Yet, in 1973, he pulled off one of the most remarkable disappearing acts of all time, vanishing without a trace with millions of dollars, leaving law enforcement, the public, and his enemies baffled. Mathews' life is a tale of ambition, intelligence, and a kind of daring unmatched by most. This is the story of Frank Mathews, a man who built one of the largest heroin and cocaine empires America has ever seen, only to disappear like a ghost, leaving behind an enduring mystery. The early years. From poverty to ambition, Frank Larry Mathews was born in 1944 in Durham, North Carolina. He grew up in a poor neighborhood where life was tough and opportunities were limited. Mathews was raised by his aunt after his parents died when he was young. Life in the Jim Crow South was challenging, especially for a young black man with big dreams. Mathews learned quickly that success would not come easily. Like many others in his position, he had to navigate a world that was designed to limit his potential. That Mathews' first brush with crime came when he was a teenager. He was arrested for stealing chickens, which might seem minor, but it was a crime of necessity for a young man trying to survive. Eventually, though, he moved on to bigger schemes. He moved to Philadelphia in the early 1960s and soon found himself involved in the illegal numbers game, a type of street lottery popular in poor communities. It was here that Mathews learned the ropes of the criminal world. The numbers game introduced him to a network of individuals involved in organized crime and taught him valuable lessons about managing people, handling money, and keeping a low profile. That if you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Rise to power. From the numbers game to drug trafficking. By the late 1960s, Mathews had moved to New York City, where he saw a golden opportunity. The city was ripe for a new player in the heroin trade. At the time, the drug business in New York was largely controlled by the Italian mafia, but Mathews saw a way in. He realized that by working directly with suppliers from abroad, he could bypass the mafia's control and build his own empire. His ambition and keen business sense set him apart from others in the game. Mathews established connections with drug suppliers in the Caribbean and South America, securing a direct line to heroin and later cocaine. This move allowed him to build a drug distribution network that stretched from the East Coast to the Midwest. Mathews' empire grew quickly, and he was soon making millions of dollars each month. His organization operated like a corporation, with Mathews at the top and a network of trusted associates handling distribution, enforcement, and logistics. What made Mathews particularly unique was his insistence on independence from the Italian mafia, who had dominated the heroin trade for years. He refused to pay them tribute or follow their rules, which was almost unheard of at the time. His willingness to stand up to the mafia earned him respect, but also painted a target on his back. Mathews was playing a dangerous game, but his skill, intelligence, and audacity helped him thrive in a business that was as violent as it was lucrative. A kingpin like no other, Mathews' business and influence. Frank Mathews wasn't just a drug dealer. He was a businessman with a vision. He understood that to maintain control, he needed to operate with a level of sophistication. He recruited people who were loyal and competent, many of whom were friends and acquaintances from his early years. Mathews also maintained strict rules to keep his organization safe. For instance, he reportedly didn't allow his associates to use drugs themselves, understanding that addiction would make them liabilities. Towards the peak of his power, Mathews was handling massive quantities of heroin and cocaine, bringing in millions in cash. He invested his earnings in real estate, nightclubs, and other legitimate businesses, using these ventures to launder his money. He lived a lavish lifestyle, but he also maintained a level of discipline that kept him under the radar. Mathews avoided the flashy displays of wealth that characterized other drug lords. While he enjoyed nice cars, tailored suits, and fine living, he did not flaunt his wealth excessively. This low-profile approach helped him avoid the attention of law enforcement for years. If you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Despite his low profile, Mathews was becoming legendary in the underworld. He was known as a fair and effective leader, and he had an aura of mystery about him that made him respected and feared. He was also a pioneer in his own right. Unlike many black drug dealers of his time who worked under the mafia's thumb, Mathews was independent. His success and defiance of the traditional power structure inspired others and changed the landscape of organized crime in America. A dangerous game. Mathews versus the mafia and law enforcement. Frank Mathews was not one to shy away from challenges, even if it meant facing off with the Italian mafia. By running his drug business independently, he became a threat to the mafia's control over the heroin trade. Mathews' refusal to pay homage or cooperate with them created tension, but he managed to hold his ground through sheer determination and the strength of his network. Mathews also had the foresight to surround himself with people who were as skilled and ambitious as he was, which made it difficult for anyone to challenge him directly. However, his growing influence didn't go unnoticed by law enforcement. By the early 1970s, the U.S. government was cracking down on drug trafficking, and Mathews was at the top of their list. The Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, was formed in 1973, and Mathews quickly became one of their prime targets. Despite the mounting pressure, Mathews remained calm and calculated. He was cautious in his operations and took steps to keep a low profile, but he knew that his time was running out. The authorities were closing in, and he needed a plan. One last move. In 1973, as law enforcement prepared to arrest him on serious drug charges, Frank Mathews pulled off one of the most incredible disappearances in criminal history. He was released on bail, and instead of showing up for his court date, he vanished without a trace. Mathews disappeared with an estimated $15 to $20 million in cash, leaving behind his luxurious properties, cars, and even his girlfriend. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. The disappearance of Frank Mathews has become one of the most enduring mysteries in American criminal history. Some believe he fled to Africa, while others suggest he might have gone to South America or the Caribbean. Various theories have surfaced over the years, but none have been confirmed. To this day, Mathews' whereabouts remain unknown, and he is still listed as a fugitive by the U.S. Marshals Service. His vanishing act has fueled endless speculation and fascination. Some believe that Mathews was killed by rivals or the mafia, while others think he managed to create a new life for himself somewhere far from the reach of U.S. authorities. Whatever the truth, Mathews' disappearance left law enforcement agencies frustrated and embarrassed. Despite their best efforts, they were unable to bring down the man who had become known as the Black Caesar. The legacy of Frank Mathews, a story that carries on. Frank Mathews' life and career left a lasting impact on the world of organized crime and drug trafficking. His success challenged the traditional power dynamics of the American drug trade, showing that black drug dealers could operate independently of the mafia. Mathews paved the way for a new generation of drug lords, proving that intelligence, strategy could rival even the most established criminal organization. In many ways, Mathews became a folk hero in some communities. To those who felt marginalized and oppressed, his story was one of a man who beat the odds and defied the system. He was a symbol of empowerment, albeit a controversial one, and his life story resonated with those who admired his ambition and grit. However, the reality of Mathews' impact was much darker. The heroin and cocaine that he brought into communities across America caused untold suffering and destruction. Families were torn apart, lives were ruined, and addiction became an epidemic that would haunt those neighborhoods for decades. Mathews' life also exposed the challenges that law enforcement faced in the fight against organized crime. His disappearance highlighted the limitations of the justice system and revealed how easily a determined individual could evade capture. For many, Mathews' ability to vanish without a trace was a slap in the face to the authorities, a testament to his cunning and resourcefulness. The mystery endures. Where is Frank Mathews? The question of what happened to Frank Mathews remains one of the great mysteries of modern crime. His disappearance has inspired countless theories, books, and even documentaries, but no one knows for certain what became of him. Did he escape to a foreign country? where he lived out his days in luxury and secrecy. Was he killed by rivals or betrayed by someone close to him? Or did he simply start a new life under a different identity, blending into the shadows and avoiding detection? The legend of Frank Mathews continues to capture the public's imagination. He was a man who defied the odds, built an empire, and outsmarted both his enemies and the law. His story is one of ambition, mystery, and the pursuit of freedom, no matter the cost. Mathews' legacy is a reminder of the allure of the criminal underworld, as well as the tragic consequences that often accompany it. A life of contradictions. Mathews' impact and lessens the life of Frank Mathews is filled with contradictions. He was a ruthless drug dealer who profited from the suffering of others. But he was also a man who pursued his dreams with an audacity that few could match. His story raises important questions about the factors that drive individuals to crime, especially in marginalized communities where opportunities are scarce. In many ways, Mathews' story is a reflection of the larger issues that plagued America in the 20th century and continue to affect society today. Racial inequality, poverty, and the allure of fast money in a world that often offers few other options. Mathews' journey from poverty to power and eventual disappearance is a cautionary tale about the dangers of ambition when it is unchecked by morality. The mystery of Frank Mathews endures not only because of his dramatic escape, but also because it speaks to the complexities of the American dream. He was a man who wanted more than what life had to offer, and he was willing to risk everything to get it. While his empire ultimately brought harm to countless lives, his story also serves as a reminder of the systemic issues that create figures like him. The legacy of the Black Caesar, Frank Mathews' life, is a powerful reminder of the challenges and contradictions of the American dream. His rise to power, independence from the mafia, and eventual escape make him one of the most fascinating figures in the world of organized crime. Mathews' story is one of ambition, intelligence, and a relentless pursuit of success, but it is also a story of destruction, loss, and mystery. The Black Caesar's legacy lives on as both a cautionary tale and an unsolved mystery. His life shows us the dangers of pursuing wealth at any cost and the impact of systemic inequality on marginalized communities. At the same time, his remarkable escape reminds us that some mysteries may never be solved. Frank Mathews remains an enigma, a ghost who defied the odds and disappeared without a trace, leaving behind a story that continues to captivate and intrigue to this day. The legend of Frank Mathews, the story of Frank Mathews, is one that has captured the imagination of many, spawning books, documentaries, and endless speculation. Mathews' mysterious disappearance elevated him from being a mere drug lord to a legend. He was a man who managed to outsmart both his rivals and the law, escaping justice at a time when most drug lords were brought down or killed. In popular culture, he is seen as the ghost of the drug trade, a phantom who represents both the allure and danger of the criminal underworld. The Mathews story resonates particularly with those who feel disenfranchised or limited by social and economic constraints. To some, his life symbolizes a bold, albeit dangerous, form of rebellion, a person who defied an oppressive system and became one of the few to escape it. Stories of individuals who rise against odds and navigate oppressive systems often become legends, and Mathews' daring and ability to remain hidden have only added to the intrigue surrounding him. Theories and speculations. Where could he be? Theories about Frank Mathews' whereabouts range from realistic to nearly fantastical. Some believe he went to Africa, where he could blend in without standing out. Others think he might have settled in South America or the Caribbean, where he could easily have lived off his fortune undisturbed. There's also speculation that he might have remained within the U.S., assuming a new identity and laying low. Mathews was clever and resourceful, with enough money to create a completely new life for himself. Given his awareness of the risks in the drug trade, Mathews might have planned his escape well in advance. Another theory suggests that Mathews' connections could have helped him disappear. He was known to associate with people in high places, lawyers, businessmen, and politicians, and it's possible that he leveraged these relationships to secure his escape. While these are only theories, The truth is that Mathews' vanishing act has remained one of the most enduring mysteries in law enforcement history. Why Mathews' story matters today, Frank Mathews' life and escape are more than just tales of crime and mystery. They touch on deeper societal issues that remain relevant today. Mathews grew up in a world that often offered few opportunities for advancement, particularly for Black Americans. The social and economic barriers he faced as a young man in North Carolina likely influenced his path into the world of crime. Mathews' story sheds light on how poverty, racism, and limited opportunities can push individuals toward illegal means to achieve success. The challenges that Mathews faced are mirrored in communities today. Poverty, lack of educational resources, and systemic discrimination continue to create cycles of crime and desperation. Many young people, feeling trapped in their circumstances, turn to illegal activities in the hopes of achieving financial stability or status. Mathews' story is a reminder that systemic issues like inequality, poverty, and lack of access to legitimate opportunities play a significant role in shaping individuals' lives. Tackling these issues could prevent others from feeling the need to follow a similar path. The role of law enforcement. Lessons from the Mathews case. The hunt for Frank Mathews taught law enforcement agencies many lessons about the challenges of apprehending high-level criminals with the means to disappear. Mathews was able to elude capture because he had both the money and the foresight to plan his escape carefully. The fact that he managed to stay one step ahead of the authorities underscores the difficulties that law enforcement faces in tracking well-connected and resourceful individuals. The DEA and U.S. Marshals used the Mathews case to improve their methods of tracking fugitives. His case highlighted the need for better international cooperation and communication between law enforcement agencies, as well as the importance of monitoring financial transactions and assets more closely. Mathews' escape remains a source of frustration for law enforcement, but it also serves as a valuable case study that has influenced the strategies used to track high-profile criminals today. Mathews' place in the drug trade. A new model for crime syndicates. Frank Mathews was a pioneer in the drug trade, not only for his independence from the Italian mafia, but also for the way he structured his organization. Mathews operated his business with a level of professionalism and discipline that was unusual at the time. He recruited individuals who were loyal and effective, and he maintained strict codes of conduct within his network. Unlike many drug lords who surrounded themselves with flashy associates and unpredictable enforcers, Mathews' organization was tightly controlled and efficient. His approach set a precedent for future crime syndicates. Mathews showed that it was possible to create a successful drug empire without relying on traditional mafia families. He inspired other Black drug dealers to assert their independence, leading to a shift in the power dynamics within the drug trade. Mathews' methods were later adopted and refined by other drug lords, some of whom went on to build their own empires. What Mathews' life tells us about the power of ambition. Frank Mathews was an ambitious man who was determined to rise above his circumstances, regardless of the risks. He had a vision of success, and he pursued it relentlessly. Mathews' life shows both the strengths and weaknesses of ambition. On one hand, his drive allowed him to achieve an incredible level of success. He was intelligent, resourceful, and disciplined, all qualities that could have led him to greatness in a different context. However, Mathews' ambition was ultimately his undoing. His desire for power and wealth led him into the drug trade, a world that brought both fortune and danger. Mathews' life serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of unchecked ambition. It reminds us that while ambition can be a powerful force for good, it can also lead to destruction when it is directed toward harmful pursuits. Redemption and forgiveness. Could Frank Mathews have changed? It's natural to wonder whether Frank Mathews could have redeemed himself if he hadn't disappeared. His intelligence and charisma suggest that he might have been capable of using his skills for positive change. Like many figures in organized crime, Mathews had qualities that could have made him a successful businessman or leader in a legitimate field. His ability to organize, strategize, and motivate others shows that he has potential beyond the criminal world. Some drug lords, like Guy Fisher, went on to make positive contributions to society after leaving crime behind. If Mathews had faced justice and served his sentence, it's possible that he too could have found a path to redemption. His story raises important questions about the nature of forgiveness and the possibility of change. Can society forgive those who have committed serious crimes if they genuinely seek to make amends? And what does it take for someone to truly change? The enduring mystery. Why Mathews' story continues to fascinate. The mystery surrounding Frank Mathews' disappearance continues to captivate people because it taps into something universal: the desire for freedom. Mathews' escape represents the ultimate act of freedom, a complete break from the constraints of society and the law. His ability to vanish without a trace appeals to our fascination with rebellion and independence. In a world where most people are bound by rules and obligations, Mathews' disappearance feels like a daring act of liberation. During the same time, his story remains a reminder of the dangers of criminal life. Mathews may have escaped capture, but he also left behind a legacy of harm. His empire contributed to the addiction and suffering of countless individuals, and the communities he impacted are still dealing with the consequences. His disappearance left a void in the lives of those who were affected by his actions, and the mystery surrounding him serves as both a cautionary tale and an invitation to reflect on the impact of crime. Final thoughts. The legacy of Frank Mathews and the American dream. Frank Mathews' life is a complex story of ambition, power, mystery, and consequence. He was a man who achieved extraordinary success by breaking the rules and defying expectations, but his accomplishments came at a great cost to himself and others. Mathews' life embodies both the promise and peril of the American dream. He rose from poverty to build an empire, yet the means he used ultimately brought destruction and sorrow. The story of Frank Mathews is also a reminder of the systemic issues that continue to shape society. His life was shaped by poverty, racial inequality, and limited opportunities, forces that remain powerful influences in marginalized communities today. Mathews' success in the drug trade reflects not only his own ambition, but also the larger issues that create cycles of crime and desperation. Ultimately, Frank Mathews' legacy is one of contradictions. He was a man who defied the odds and achieved a level of success that most could only dream of, but his methods and impact were undeniably harmful. His disappearance left the world with an enduring mystery, one that continues to captivate and intrigue. Whether he was a hero, a villain, or simply a man shaped by his environment, Frank Mathews remains one of the most fascinating figures in American criminal history. In the end, his story is a reminder that behind every legend is a human being, shaped by choices, circumstances, and ambition. Frank Mathews' life challenges us to think about the nature of success, the consequences of crime, and the possibility of redemption. His legacy endures as both a cautionary tale and a fascinating mystery, a story that captures the complexity of human ambition and the enigmatic nature of life itself. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. Also, don't forget to join our YouTube membership team for more exclusive content.